All right. Hello and welcome to Chinook's Edge Teaching Tech Tips. I'm Alan Whitehead, and tonight we're going to spend hopefully about 15 minutes going over using some tools in Google for assessment. And really, focus is looking at how we can streamline student assessment so that it's efficient for teachers and that it supports student learning. So hopefully you find a couple of the tools tonight useful. I'm going to share my screen so you can see what I'm going to go over. So we're going to start, we're going to look at two main tools tonight. The first one is in Google Forms. So we'll just talk briefly about creating a form, how you could use them in different ways for assessment, and some add-ons to forms that really take it to the next level in terms of assessment and feedback for students. And then we'll go into adding rubrics into Google Docs. So if you want to do any kind of assessment with rubrics, doing that all built in a digital kind of workflow so you don't have to use any paper is great as well. I should apologize for my voice. I've got a head cold right now, so I'm a bit congested. I'm sorry if I'm hard to understand, but hopefully it's not too bad. Okay, so to start with, if we want to get into Google Forms, those are all built through Google Drive. They're an app in Google Drive. When you're in your Drive, if you hit New, and you can do this anywhere, if you're specifically wanting to put that form into a folder, make sure you're in that place before you hit New, over on the left, and then you have to go to More, and it's the purple app, Google Forms. Just change the color to purple. This is just asking me because I share the folder that I'm currently in with other people. It always asks you if you want to share it with those same people. So I just hit OK because that's fine by me. Now this is what the form building interface looks like. So this gives you a lot of options. Starting at the top, you can set all these different tick boxes. The first one's really handy to require people to be logged into their CESD accounts. Why this is handy is that it will then, you can hit the other one here and it will collect their username. So you know automatically who filled it out. Obviously, if you want it to be an anonymous kind of survey, then you wouldn't click this one off. It gives you a few other options there. So right here it says page 1 of 1, and we've got our first, it automatically gives you one question. So at the top here we could kind of title it like test form, oops. Information or description or instructions here. Then it gets into the first title or first question, and you can see you can move this around, so you can kind of change the order as you go. And that's handy if you have multiple questions. You could shift them just by grabbing and moving. So the first one will say simple. And if you need to put any more instructions in here, you can do that as well. Question type you can set if you want it to be multiple choice or a text, paragraph text. Obviously, text then would just be a little bit of a shorter section. Check boxes, a whole bunch of different options there. And we'll leave it as multiple choice, and we'll give it a few answers. We're going to get 4 options there. You can check off at the bottom whether you want that to be required or not. They have to fill that out. Done. So there's my question there. If you hit Add Item, it gives you a new question to put in. So say you're building one for parent-teacher interviews. This is a handy one to use it for. And we'll set this as, actually we'll leave that as multiple choice as well. We'll just give some. Actually, there's a time feature. Let's use that. So let's say they could fill that in actually. They could say this is the time I could meet at. I'm going to set it as multiple choice because I want to show something that's handy in a few minutes as well. So let me just say we wanted to have parent-teacher interviews, a few different options every 45 minutes. And I'm going to make that a required question. Okay, let's add one more. We could ask for their name. Might be a good one to ask for right off the bat. Set that as text. Required, they have to write the name. Okay. If we click up here to view live form, this will show me what, in its current state, the form will look like when someone receives it. So if you send this to someone or share it with them, they would go to the form and be able to select all these. They can see this is what it looks like. I can go back to building it, and I can change the theme. I want to give it a different background, lots to choose from. Sure, let's choose that one. And now when I view the live form, it shows up with that background. You can play around with that as well. Now, one thing to be aware of is when you create a form, it automatically also creates a spreadsheet, a Google Sheet that's linked to this, where all your data will go to. So there's a couple ways we can get there. It will be in the same folder you created the form in. So if I go back to my drive, you can see my test form, and then with that is my test form responses. Or if I'm editing questions, I can just click View Responses here, and it will automatically open up that spreadsheet. You can see no one's filled out any answers yet. Okay, so that's creating a form. You can use that for some exit slip questions, quick quizzes, all sorts of ideas for assessment there. Going back to forms, I'll show you a few other neat things. If you want to use forms to create math quizzes, there's an add-on you can get. So in the toolbar up here, if you go to add-ons, if you haven't added it already, you have to go to Get Add-ons and then search for this one called GMath for forms. And once you've added that, you can add math expressions, graphs, statistical displays into questions. So now I could create a graph, and it pulls up a toolbar over here on the right that I can work in. Basically create a question, gives me an example there. Let's say insert there you go. So I threw it in down there. Now if I want to move it, I can move it around. I could put it, if it was, let's say, associated with my 2 plus 2 question, I can have the graph right above it. All sorts of things you can do with math there as well. So if you want to use Google Forms to create math quizzes and put in expressions or graphs, you can do it that way with the GMath add-on. Again, just going into the add-on and looking for add-ons called GMath. While we're in here, another add-on is Choice Eliminator. Again, if you don't have it, you have to go get the add-on and look it up. But this would allow, just like my question about parent-teacher interview times, this allows you to kind of do a first come, first serve. So if someone selects a time that I've got on there, it won't show up for the next person that goes in to fill out the survey. So if I start up Choice Eliminator, it will ask me what question am I dealing with. So let's say I want to choose the what time can you meet at question. And I'm going to say let's eliminate some choices. And I'll go into my choice options. And I'm going to say after one count, it will be eliminated. If I wanted to allow 2 people to sign up for the 2 o'clock one, I have 2 options, let's say. You would change that to 2 then, and now it would show up until 2 people selected. Okay, I'm going to hit save, and set that there. You can always go back into the add-on and turn that off or change it, refresh it. So now if I go to my live form, I can actually work with the data a little bit. You can see now I've got my nice graph in there. I can fill out my answers. I can eliminate a choice. So one thing, if you're using this for assessment, you can actually use an app to grade it for you and even to grade it automatically. To set that up, you'd build your form just like we've done, and then you'd fill out an answer key. So I'm going to actually put my name in here as answer key. Plus 2 is for, this isn't really a question you'd mark, but let's just pretend it would be. I'm going to say 2 o'clock. And I don't even know what that question is from. I think that's from that's for our graph up here. They got linked separately. So I'm going to submit my answer key. Now, when I go to my view responses, you can see it gives me a count of 1 response. It shows up here. So you can see, here's all my responses. I'm going to fill one more form out. So we have as if it was a student perhaps that answered these questions. So now you can see my choice eliminator doesn't show up. So you don't want to use choice eliminator in a multiple choice question, right? But just play along. Student, and submit. So now when I go to my responses, you can see I've got a timestamp with when that was submitted, who it was, so I can see that it was me because I recorded it. Recorded my username both times, and I've got the answers here. A couple things I can do with this data now. One is go to the add-ons here in the sheet. Again, if you don't have the add-on, you'd have to go find it. But a handy one is called Flubaroo. If I enable Flubaroo, this is an add-on that will do the marking for me. So now that just enabled Flubaroo. I can go to the add-on to Flubaroo, and now I have more options here in the menu. I can grade the assignment. So the first thing it's going to do is say, for each question you've got, how many points is it worth? It identifies the student, so it's not going to use that. This one, 2 plus 2, I'm going to say normal grading. I could change it to skip or grade by hand if I want to mark something that's going to be a written question. I'm going to say normal grading. I'm going to give it 1 mark. What time can you meet at? Which leave that as normal grading, even though that's not a question you would use for grading. And that one already was normal as well. Move on. It's going to ask me for which one is the actual key. So that's why I named this one answer key, with all the right answers. So it's going to grade every submission against my answer key. Continue, it's grading. Now what it's done is it's created a separate page down here on my sheet. And that's where my grade report will show up. You can see they have lots of handy tips you can check out. So this is still in my student responses page. Just if I go to the next page on the sheets down here, get a bit of a summary over here. I can see there was 1 submission by a student, and they got 1 point, so 33%, 1 out of 3. They got 2 plus 2 wrong. What time can you meet wrong at? And this is the one they got right. So every student that fills this out would just show up down below with their marks here. In addition to that, you can go back to the add-on menu to Flubaroo. You can then email these grades out to students because we've collected their email, essentially their username is their email. You can view a report a little bit more in detail. Do some graphs or a histogram. You can get that email to yourself. You can go back in to Flubaroo as well and go to advanced. You can enable auto grade. So what this would do is once students have completed the quiz, it would automatically mark it, and you can set it to automatically email them their responses. So that would be really nice for formative assessment. You want them to get that instant feedback for maybe an exit sub sort of activity. Oh, sorry for a second, go to email. So this just takes you through the same options. You're setting it up for automatically sending it back. So then you can set this up beforehand, and any student that answers the questions afterwards will get that report. So email goes to their username. If you want, you can include the answer key, give them the correct message, and you can write a message in about anything you like in there as well. And that'll set it up to email back to the student as soon as they click submit. Okay, so that's kind of using Flubaroo and some quick assessments using Google Forms. There's lots of different options, or if you want to use it as a survey or a sign-up sheet, using Choice Eliminator is a great option for that, especially for things like parent-teacher interviews or different things like that, or maybe station work with students to get them to sign up. If you only want a few students at each station, you could use it for that. One other thing to wrap up, we want to look at Rubric, which is a way to add rubrics to Google Docs. So there's 2 ways you can do this. It works really well through Google Classroom. If you're not using Google Classroom, you should be, but if you're not, you can use this outside of Google Classroom as well. You just do everything in your own shared folder. So just kind of keep that in mind. I'm going to show the Google Classroom way. You could also set this up and do it by creating your own folders, because essentially Google Classroom just creates the folder structure for you. So the first thing you need to do is assign a document to students. So I'm in my Google Classroom here, and I'm going to assign a position paper to students. Position paper 2, and I can set a due date. I'm going to attach from my drive the assignment to students. I know I already have one in my drive somewhere, so I'm going to search for it. It's the one, so I'm going to select it. So that's now attached to it, and I'm going to assign it. Okay. And actually, I need to go back into that. Because down here when I assigned it, I want them to edit. Oh, sorry, it's view. That's right. Never mind, I'm going crazy. I want them to view and be able to make their own copy. So they will get a copy of that. So in my folders, I'm going to go to my classroom folder now. You can take a look at the folder there. Google Classroom creates all this for you. In my social studies classroom, I now have a position paper. Should have a position paper 2 assignment. For some reason I don't. Now I can show you with a quick search. My drive is being really slow right now. Hard when you're trying to demonstrate. Well, I think it's because no students have gone and grabbed it yet, so I don't have a folder yet. Well, I can show you for one that I've done before. I basically went through the same thing in this position paper folder. Here's the same position paper that students have submitted back to me. What I then do is in that folder, create a Google Sheet, spreadsheet. You can just leave it blank. All we're going to use the spreadsheet for is running an add-on. So once we have our spreadsheet, I'm going to just title it paper 2. So I know what it is. And I'm going to get the add-on Doctopus. Okay, if you don't have it, you have to go look and get add-ons. Get Doctopus and you launch it. Once you hit launch, you're going to see a little folder that pulls up over on the right here. And you're going to select a roster from your Google Classroom. So it knows that you can pull it from Classroom. If you're not using Classroom, you're going to have a separate sheet that has your folder or all your student names and information on it. So the nice thing about Classroom is it pulls it all right out of there. So I'm going to say I want to get it out of my Google Classroom, and then I'm going to select the class. You have multiple classes that show up here. And then the assignment, position paper. So what that's going to do is it's going to pull in all that information right out of Classroom, so you don't have to do that yourself. Could take a minute. While it's doing that, another thing you want to add is the rubric Chrome extension. And what that does is it allows you in a document to open up the extension. So I'm going to search extensions for rubric. And that's the web launcher right there. So you're going to have to add that to your file as well. Okay. So back here you can see now there's 6. So I'm going to ingest this assignment. Pulling in here all the assignments. Definitely taking its time. Okay, so now you can see it's pulled in all the students that have submitted and links to all the assignments. So The next step then is nothing. You just leave it here. We're good. You don't have to touch the data. You can just see it. It's nice. It's really organized. Don't mess it up. Over on the right here, I'm going to go and attach my rubric. Almost there. I know this seems like a lot of steps. That's why the video is great. You can pause, rewind, go back over it, try it yourself. It already knows I've used one called Position Paper Rubric, or you could search your drive. So you have to have a rubric in your drive set up in this sheet. Basically, whatever rubric you want to use, you've got your criteria and your scale. So the scale has to run along the top and the criteria along the side. I'll show you. I want to take a look at it. Click on the eyeball so you can see what I mean. The scale on the top here, and then along the top to bottom, along the rows or columns, I guess, would be the criteria here. So just put my rubric into a sheet. I'm going to select that one and attach it. And what it's essentially doing is associating a rubric with each copy of that student's file. So every time we open that student's file, it's going to find that rubric with it as well. So basically, it's attaching that rubric to every single file that's been handed in. Okay, so now when I go back into my folder for the position paper, and I open up the student's paper that's been submitted back to me. Here's the position paper I assigned to them. They submitted it back. I attached a rubric to it through that rubric process. I can look at the student writing. Great. There's actually none here. This is just the assignment, but just play along. Because I added that rubric web launcher extension, that's what this little eye is up in my Omnibox bar up here. Now, when I click on it, because I've got something attached to it, it's going to look for rubrics when I click on it that are attached to that document. And through that sheet where we've done the attaching, it will find the rubric and pull it up for me with the student assignment below. Close a few of my windows here. Now, one other thing too I can mention while we're waiting is if we're in Google Classroom, we can enter marks for an assignment right here if we want. You can enter marks in Classroom, or you can just enter that mark and keep it for yourself, put it in Gradebook, however you like to do it. I don't know. Some people might use it in Classroom, others might not want to enter marks in Classroom. That's up to you as well. Typically, it does not take this long to load. I'm hoping I did everything right. I'm going to try doing that again. So we've got the students file open, clicking on the launcher. That is not working. Try one more time. Let's try a different file. Doesn't seem to like what I'm doing here. I'll try one more. this doesn't work, I have no idea. I think it's just having trouble opening it. It seems like it's doing everything right, but just not pulling up the data. What we should see is this bottom window kind of that it pulls up would actually have the student assignment in it. The top one along here will have the rubric criteria. You can click through them and click on the ones you like to select. Over in this box on the right, you have a little comment section, and then this microphone you can actually use to leave a voice comment. Then you can decide in here if you want to email the rubric to students after you've marked it, so they can see it right away with comments or whatnot. So, oh, there we go, it is opening. Okay, so there you go. You can see I'm not crazy. It's just taking a really long time. So again, in the bottom, here's the student work. You can be reading through, you can make comments or edit however you normally would in a Google Doc. Up top here, we've got our rubric criteria. I can tab between them, and then I can select to give them a mark based on those criteria. Over here, you can write in a comment. You can decide if you want to email that. If you want to let them change from can view to comment, if you want them to be able to comment back. Okay, and then voice comments as well. You can even then click next and go on to the next student. You'll just keep going through your list of students that have submitted that assignment. All right. Well, I apologize for going longer than I intended. I'm not sure with that little glitch at the end. I hope this is helpful. As always, though, if you have any questions or want to learn a little bit more, you can give me a call or email me, alwhitehead@cesd73.ca. If you have any suggestions for future sessions or have ideas that you'd like to share, let me know. Send me an email. And we'll see you in 2 weeks with another session. Thanks.